You are listening to the Freight Buyers Club, a home for those interested in international trade, shipping, procurement, logistics, and air freight. In fact, all things supply chain in the Americas, Asia, and beyond. This podcast is brought to you by your host, Mike King, and produced in partnership with Dimerco Express Group, a global 3PL that specializes in managing logistics to, from, and within the Asia-Pacific region.
Hello and welcome to the Freight Buyers Club, which, as you've just heard, is produced with the support of Dimerco Express Group. We are available on all podcast platforms, on YouTube, and on the freightbuyersclub.com. Please do like, follow, review, and comment. You'll also find the Freight Buyers Club and me, Mike King, on LinkedIn. Please do say hello. Okay, in our final episode before TPM in Long Beach, the turn of the month, we're looking at some of the issues that will be examined at the event. And there's plenty to cover because the new US president has been true to Steve Bannon's PR strategy on trade as well as much else, because the news end zone has been well and truly flooded. We've got de minimis, chaos at airports, a suspension, followed by an information black hole. We're next for tariffs on Mexico and Canada. We may or may not have a carve-up of Ukraine's mineral wealth. A return to the sort of colonialism and might is right reminiscent of Europe's global race for riches some centuries ago. What looked like a breakthrough for peace in the Middle East now looks like it might end up being an escalation. What is the new normal will be front and centre at TPM, where delegates will be trying to negotiate rates and plan supply chains while the tectonic trade plates wobble beneath them. Is this all about fairness in trade? Is all this just the end of globalisation, the end of the post-World War II trading and economic system that the US itself helped set up? Is this the emergence, in fact, of a new mercantilism, a world in which win-wins are a thing of the past? And on that note, on Monday, 3rd of March, at 4:50 p.m. at TPM, you can catch Bronson Hsieh, Chief Executive Officer at Dimerco Express Group, talking about a lot of this in a session titled An Asia Perspective on Trump Tariffs, Outsourcing, and Global Industry Development. So anyway, in this podcast and the following ones, we will be exploring the supply chain and some shipping implications of all this. And today we will be looking at this from the origin end of the Trans-Pacific supply chain, and we'll also be examining what we can expect from container shipping lines in terms of their strategy in the coming weeks and months. And I'm delighted to be joined today by two people who know a lot about both. First up, we have Shanghai-based Kathy Liu, Vice President of Global Sales and Marketing at Dimerco Express Group. Hello, Kathy. Welcome back. Where are you at the moment? And when are you flying into Long Beach for some TPM meetings?
Hello, Mike. Nice to talk with you again. Yeah, I will be there next weekend, and we will have some welcome dinner, some event over there for the TPM guests. And also during the TPM event, our CEO, Mr. Dimerco Hsieh, will be one of the panelists to share about Asia Pacific market information. Yeah.
So I will see you there at the end of February, start of March. Excellent.
Yeah.
And joining Kathy today, I'm delighted to say, is a true giant of container shipping, giving the Freight Buyers Club yet another exclusive. Over a 45-year career, he has been chairman of not one, but two of the world's biggest shipping lines, Evergreen and Ming. In fact, he was vice president of Evergreen Group and chairman of Evergreen Shipping and CEO of Ming. Bronson Hsieh, welcome back. Pleasure to have you.
Hello, everybody. Nice talking to you, Mike, again.
Okay, thanks, Bronson. Right, Kathy, we'll start with you. How do I put this? We've had a rather crazy start to the year. We've got tariffs. We had this early Lunar New Year break that sort of threw things slightly when we were trying to have all this confusion going on. There's been this creeping feeling of uncertainty around freight markets and geopolitics. Maybe feeling of uncertainty is not really quite doing that justice. Everything's changing in ways that makes me think things will be very different tomorrow compared to today. How has this felt in China, where you're based, or how is this feeling in Vietnam, where you are now?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in China, we get a big gift for the Chinese New Year from Trump, right? for the 10% tariff, and plus those kind of all those new regulation to the e-commerce. So actually now the market is very quiet, and also you know that all those regulations can be changed from one day to another. So it's like a roller coaster, up and down. And every day it can be something new. So I think a lot of customers, they are holding back the shipping schedules. And then we see it's actually very quiet after Chinese New Year in the market, especially there's a certain quantity of the inventory already moved over, especially to US before 20th of January, which the onboard day for Trump. So let's say the customer in US already have enough stock in place. So it's not urgently need anything by air freight. That's why I think the current market start from before Chinese New Year up to now, it's really, really quiet. Yeah, let's say like this.
So we had front loading ahead of tariffs. We also had that threat of strikes at US East Coast and Gulf Coast ports. And then we had Chinese Lunar New Year. Plenty of reasons to front load. Just on those changes in regulations, as we speak right now, and it could be different, as I say, tomorrow, we've had 10% increase in tariffs on China. There was this US ban on de minimis parcels from China into the US of less than $800. Although this came with the rider that this would only be introduced when systems are in place to collect those tariff revenues, and parcels started piling up at US airports. So that's sort of suspended, creating more of this uncertainty. Assuming all this does happen, it's a massive blow for e-tailers, for anyone in e-commerce when this comes into full force, the tariffs, the ending of de minimis regulations.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's what we see that at the beginning of February, I believe that the announcement say there's no more de minimis for all those parcels. And then all of a sudden, the USPS also announced that stopped to accept any parcel out of China mainland and Hong Kong. So those actually a big, very big impact to all the e-commerce out of China. But although they recovered somehow just from within 1 or 2 days, I believe. But still, the e-commerce, those vendors, they are actually very hesitant to move big quantity into US anymore because you never know what will happen tomorrow. And also, I believe that currently the US government is talking about that because of the CBP not really ready to make this kind of change. That's why they suspended. Once they are ready, it will be implemented immediately. And the USPS, it's another thing. It's very important for e-commerce shipment from China because most of the parcels, actually, they are moving as general cargo, air freight into US and then connect directly with USPS service to the, let's say, the final consumer and the consumers. If this kind of service will be suspended, it will be terrible. It will be a disaster for all the e-commerce companies in China. So under all those kind of consideration, because you never know what will happen tomorrow, maybe the regulation will be changed immediately. So we see a lot of cancellation of the freighter charters by e-commerce and also a lot of BSA be canceled. That's another, I think, reason that it leads the very slow and very, very down the market now.
China has responded with its own tariffs and restrictions on key exports of energy transition technologies and defense applications. For example, Indian products used in optical communications and tellurium used in the manufacture of solar panels. President Trump might increase tariffs on China in response and has already raised tariffs on all steel and aluminium imports into the US, which could trigger various responses around the world. We've also got the threat of more tariffs on EU, and the sword of Damocles is hanging over Mexico and Canada, and 25% tariffs on them as well. It's a pretty bleak picture if you're in the business of trade or you favor free trade, Kathy.
Yeah, that's what we are worried about, because you know that when you use tariff as a weapon, then it's really nobody will be benefit for that. And we already see that looks like the Trump administration like to add on tariff to everybody. So there's no difference anymore. So before, let's say some of those manufacturers, because of China Plus One, the high tariff put by US government to China, then they move to other countries. But now if for everybody will get the same, like let's say penalty, then why they move, right? So this somehow also make the companies, customers, they are actually hesitate to move out. So somehow it's benefit to China. But for all those manufacturers, they already move into another country like Southeast Asia and Mexico, then maybe the cost will be different compared with at the beginning stage why they moved there. So it's actually not benefit for anybody, and especially who will be the one absorb all those tariffs by the end. It's actually the end consumer, so which is the people in United States. So why we do that, right? So there's a lot of this kind of discussion in place. But anyway, the trade war, it will be not a benefit for anybody. Yeah.
Just a quick one before we bring Bronson in. You're in Vietnam at the moment. Are people concerned there that even though Vietnam is not subject to tariffs at the moment, and there's no suggestion that it might be subject to tariffs, it's done very well out of China plus one with so much uncertainty around. I mean, would people gamble on moving there?
Yeah, I think there's still quite a popular hot destinations for those manufacturing normally in China now moving to Vietnam. And one side is also Vietnam is very close to China. We are just neighbors, and especially for north part of Vietnam, it's linked together with China territory. So for them, it's very easy to move those equipment or production line into that country. And on the other hand, and Vietnam actually among all Asian countries, they have the most of the economic partnership with a lot of different organizations. So I think this also put Vietnam as very beneficial for that. So overall, we see in Vietnam, we see the market is quite good and a lot of business activities here. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity here.
Bronson, may I cast you back slightly and draw on your extensive container shipping executive knowledge? What would your strategy have been as a renowned shipping executive heading into 2025, given all of the variables, port strikes, tariffs, unknowns around the use of Suez? And when I say strategy, I was thinking from an aligner executive position, but feel free to look at this from a freight buyer's perspective. What would your strategy have been?
Luckily, the possible strike in the U.S. West Coast has been done in 2024. The U.S. East Coast and the Gulf Pole has been signed in 2025. In other words, for the coming 6 years, you will not meet or encounter such kind of freedom from those post-strike. I heard you talk a lot of tariff. Well, I think most of the outbound cargoes will be reduced temporarily. When you are going to impose the tariff, I don't think the big country will keep quiet. So just like example, the Canada, American government tried to impose 25% to Canada. But Canada understand the next day they try to take a retaliatory action against America's actions. But luckily, this problem has been solved because Canada government, they promised we send 10,000 troops standing on the border between United States and Canada. So right now, the American government already gives 30 days extension periods. Right now, just only 10% tariff charged to the Chinese export cargo. But the other country, we don't know. Bilateral tariff war, no doubt. That will create a so-called inflation pressure to American consumer. But that's only, I think that's for temporary. For the long run, because the importer in the United States, they will take some kind of measure. They are trying to do something so-called in dispersion of the supply source. They are going to diversify the country they are going to buy to replace the cargo they buy from China. That's happened during the past 20 years. Mainly in China, those government gradually been replaced by those kind of government made by Bangladesh or Thailand, or because those not pay to pay the tariff. Besides, maybe the price is more reasonable than the price they pay to Chinese productions. So in other words, the consumer in the United States will find a way to balance the amount they pay to the Chinese product or to the country, the Chinese cargoes. So I think that these the cargo volume will resume later on.
Cargo will find its way. The idea of tariffs as reducing income taxes is something that the Trump administration has talked about. Okay, well, we'll see how that goes, but you're positive on cargo demand. Just on another point for this year, Bronson, what do you make of the alliance restructure we're seeing in terms of what freight buyers should expect?
Well, you see, that's a high issue because this revolution starting from the 1st of February, again, that's my perspective. Basically, no difference for those 4 alliances, means 3 alliances plus MAC. Okay? No big difference for those schedule and reliability in those so-called stable port operation era. But there's some difference. The Gemini, they can provide another choice for shipper to choose, especially when everybody is facing the so-called chaotic dark operation.
Bronson, I'll just explain for the listeners. So the Gemini cooperation is between Maersk and Hapag-Lloyd. Maersk was previously in the 2M alliance with MSC, which is now going it alone. The Gemini cooperation is promising 90% schedule reliability port to port across its network by midsummer.
You see, Gemini, they provide the so-called 90% of schedule reliability. We don't know what is the result would be. Would be helpful for the customer, doesn't matter shipper or consigning. But in my experience, I would say it's another one choice. Gemini, they use a deep zero service. They try to shorten the loop. Also, they provide the fewer calling port. That means they try to limit or minimize the risk when the vessel encounter those kind of disruption of service. Besides that, they use the feeder service. Those feeder no need to call so many ports. The shuttle just call only 1 or 2 ports. That really will avoid some kind of disruption in case some port they may have some kind of chaotic operation problem. So when you see, I'm not sure, but from my experience during the past, let me give you an example. 2022, January 9, you know how many vessels was stuck outside of a port of LA Long Beach?
Quite a lot.
109 vessels was stuck over there. If you providing Gemini's service, it probably Gemini the vessel. Well, just take example, because LA Long Beach, everybody will choose this good hop. But I'm talking about the Southeast Asia. Okay, as long as you call less port, you will avoid some kind of disruptions. Plus, the shuttle service will give some kind of assistance. Okay, so I would not say they are 100% good, but anyway, everybody will and see whether they will bring you some benefit for those kind of shorter route, also fewer calling ports. That's my opinion.
We'll just take a short break. We'll be back with you in a second.
This podcast is proudly produced in partnership with Dimerco Express Group, a trusted provider of global shipping and contract logistics services in Asia, Europe, and North America. Dimerco's particular strength is in Asia, where it gives shippers the freight capacity and local market expertise to streamline freight movements to and from the region, particularly for trans-Pacific lanes. With 130 forwarding and logistics locations across China, India, and Southeast Asia, Dimerco connects Asia with the world like no other global 3PL. You are listening to the Freight Buyers Club.
In the last episode of the Freight Buyers Club, I was with John Munro and JOC's Mark Zacconi. We were talking about whether container lines have learned the lessons of the last few years and whether they would chase market share if container markets did slump, as some are predicting they might this year. And we heard earlier from Kathy about slow demand post the Lunar New Year. I said on that podcast I was less certain because I've been covering this market a lot and I don't remember people not chasing market share. But what's your take, Bronson? Obviously, you've been there and you know got every single T-shirt that could possibly be available in the shop. What's your take? Say, for example, if we game this, the Suez Canal will open tomorrow. We saw freight rates started dipping. Would there be some congestion initially, but the market started turning bearish? What would Liner's strategy be in that scenario, do you think? Do you think we would have a rate collapse, and do you think we would have people going for market share?
Well, you're talking about the Suez Canal once, the Red crisis, okay? If it's going to be over tomorrow, I don't think they will come back at once. They were very cautious when those carriers remaining in the good haul. The revenue they generated cannot cover the cost, cannot cover the expenses they spend. They will come back. Once most of the shipping company back to the Red Sea, definitely they will create a lot of the destruction of the supply chain. at least 2 or 3 months.
There's going to be port congestion. There'll be equipment in the wrong
You're
places.
right. You're right.
When that normalizes, Bronson, my question is, if that happens and when that normalizes, do you think container lines will have learned lessons from the past, or will they go for market share to fill their ships?
Okay, so after those first 2 or 3 months period, everybody knows very well. Right now, there are 10% additional capacity stuck in the Gulf. Those additional capacity will be moved back to Red Sea, no doubt. Plus, this year, there are about 2 million TEUs new delivery when joined into this battlefield. So you can imagine the ocean freight will come down.
Historically, when we've had a bearish market, at least one carrier has gone, I want my ships full, and it's brought more pressure on rates downwards, and container lines have stopped making profits. Do you think there's anything different now than there has been in the past after COVID and all of these lessons? Do you think people would lay up ships or scrap more ships to get rid of that extra 10% capacity? Or will it be the same as it always was, and there'll be a race for market share and to fill the ships?
All the geopolitical problems are easy to make forecasts. Doesn't matter you are a small player or big player, just like the biggest shipping company, they try to buy or charter a lot of ship. One of the major purposes, they are going to build up their own fleet. So they buy a lot of the vessels, charter a lot of vessels. Their market share become the number one. Okay? The small player doesn't mean they are not lazy or they are not a good player. But point is, when you encounter those kind of unpredictable the market, the big player, they always take advantage to make money. Maybe some people say the bigger is always the best. In my personal point of view, I don't share those kind of comment. I think most important is you got to check your so-called operating profit. Although your size is small, but if we consider operating profit, probably you are making more money than the biggest one. That's happened during the past 10 years. Let me give you an example, just like a Taiwanese carrier, the Shanghai. The size compared in the other biggest size giant in Europe, the size may be only 10%, but operating profit, they are number one in the world. Number two, maybe overshare. In terms of size, they are not good player. So when you encounter those kind of unpredictable futures, especially these years, two major issues. One is the tariff war. One is the Red Sea crisis. Okay, that's really nobody knows what's going on. So I always talk to the customers. Day before yesterday, I participated in one freight forwarder association in Taiwan. I tell them this year, really, you got to protect yourself. When you are going to commit a service contract with the carriers, everybody should stand on a very reasonable position to negotiate the long-term service contract. Otherwise, you will be in trouble. Nobody are fortune tellers.
No, unfortunately. How do you view the types of ships the container lines have been buying? Because we've got this very uncertain trading landscape. Have they been buying the right ships?
Okay, if we're talking about the right ship, there's some the history during the past few years. Nowadays, the market for the vessel chartering, selling, buying, those kind of second-hand vessels, still quite hard. I'm talking about especially those medium and the small size of the vessels. My own personal view, there are two reasons. The first one reason is the alliance needed to make pre-deployment adjustment. They needed some kind of small and medium-sized vessels. Okay. Also, because of the so-called tariff war, that will make those consumers, for instance, in the United States and Europe, they are trying to divert their buying supply, not from China only. Also, they will divert to the Southeast Asia country. Of course, it depends on April 2nd, what the Trump administration is going to announce based on the so-called reciprocal tariff war. Otherwise, as I mentioned earlier, for instance, American consumers imported, they will divert their buying supply from elsewhere. For those areas, especially in Southeast Asia area, medium, small size vessel will be enlarged to a certain degree. In other words, Those kind of medium size is suitable for those intra-Asia. So that's you will see whether they buy the right ship at this moment. I think those two are major reasons. Why? Right now, very difficult to charter the suitable vessel, especially for medium and small size of vessels. But the bilateral tariff war the tariff war definitely will impact the cargo for the East-West main service. But this East-West main service still need mega ship. But the growth ratio speed will not be bigger than the previous 5 to 10 years. Instead, carrier, they are supposed to seek more medium or small size vessel to replace the biggest vessels. That's my comment.
Smaller vessels needed in a very fast changing world. Kathy, how is Dimerco viewing the rest of 2025? Are you optimistic about trade levels, or are there too many unknowns to call it now?
I think we still see a lot of opportunity in the market because, as an Asian-based logistics service provider, we are not only focused China, but also the rest of Asia countries, especially that we have invested heavily in Southeast Asia already over 3 to 4 decades. So we have enough resources there. So somehow we see the uncertainty because of the different tariffs might be applied to different countries or different service products. But at least you cannot ban for all the countries in Asia, right? There must be some point we can have the growing point and we can have the growing opportunities. So for sure, the challenge is there, but in between that, we also see there's a lot of favorable opportunity for us. And we believe that the Southeast Asia countries can be the next China regarding the manufacturing and those productions. So we think we can be benefit for that as well.
And how are you expecting air freight markets to hold up? We saw this big increase in capacity out of China over the last 12 months or so. We mentioned there before about de minimis and the slow post-Lunar New Year period. Do you think some of this air freight capacity will be withdrawn, or is it a wait and see on tariffs?
I think for the air freight market, especially like the last 3 years after pandemic, most of, not most, but especially out of China, that over 50% of the air freight demand actually is from e-commerce. So for the cancellation of those de minimis and also might be some new tariff put on, we believe that the e-commerce, especially for air freight, will be reduced gradually. But the e-commerce will be still in place. This will be not be replaced by any others at current stage. But what we see is because currently why they need more air freight, because all the e-commerce business, most of the time they are using B2C module. So from China, go to US and then connect with the USPS and then go to end consumer directly. That's the current module. But under the new regulation, we see that most probably they will go back to the B2B2C. So means they will have export from China into US and then maybe store in like a DC. And then when they have the final order, then they move out the small parcel from that DC. So this is what we see. And also after almost 3 years, the running like a Temu, Shein, they already have enough, let's say the user database. They can easily identify what kind of products is most frequently ordered by the users. So they can put those in the inventory into US. That's we see it will be changed. So e-commerce will be still there, but maybe less air freight. They will use more ocean freight to transport those inventories. That we see that it will be a big impact, especially for the China air freight market, because in past years, there's a lot of freighters, a lot of this kind of capacities, doesn't matter belly capacity or freight capacities, injected into China and the Hong Kong market because of the rising of the e-commerce demand. But now, if all of a sudden it's changed, just like recently, there's dozens of the cargo freighters be canceled because of those charter agreements be terminated, and also the BSA be terminated. So we see there's a lot of capacity actually in the market. That's too much compared with what's the demand from the market. So we see that the air freight out of China will be not that good this year, will be keep very flat But Southeast Asia will be another growing point for the air freight, especially into US and Europe.
So what, keep an eye on Vietnam, keep an eye on Indonesia, keep an eye on India?
Right, exactly. So those countries, I think, will still have the most opportunity to grow. Doesn't matter for the market or for Dimerco, for ourselves, because we already see that kind of like most of the automotive manufacturers, they are moved to Thailand, electronic go to Vietnam, and the semiconductor move to Malaysia. Yeah, and also some other automotive related to Indonesia. So it's quite clear about different industry they have moved to their destination countries. And we see that start from this year, they will start the production, and then the finished goods will move out from those countries to US and Europe.
Kathy, is there any initiatives or innovations Dimerco is offering customers this year you want to tell us about? Any new products out there?
Yeah, sure. I think we have offered firstly as for Southeast Asia, we are also offer customs brokerage service, because in Southeast Asia countries, there are different countries, they have different local regulation and compliance. That's somehow it's very complex, especially for foreign companies. But we have the resource in local, and we have very familiar with the procedure, with the people. So we offer the custom brokerage service to help those foreign invested manufacturers to move in their equipment, and also for export their finished goods. This is not new products, but now it's getting more and more popular and more frequently needed. And then another is that we know that the infrastructure in Southeast Asia is not that good, especially for airport and ocean port. So there's very less capacity in Thailand, Vietnam, compared with in China. So we are actually using the multimodal transportation to give solutions and alternative options to our customers that we can move. For example, Vietnam, especially in north part of Vietnam, in Hanoi, there's very less air cargo capacity. So we are actually leverage our hub in Guangzhou, because Southern China is next to Vietnam. And then we use the cross-border truck to put the shipment on the truck from Vietnam, truck down to Guangzhou, and then connect our freighters in Guangzhou to the final destination in the US or Europe. This is somehow can saving the transit time, and also can saving the cost for customer, because because limited capacity in Vietnam, so that's why the rates always higher than out of China. So we make some combination to offer the similar lead time but lower cost. This is quite popular service. And also we are leverage other gateway in China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Korea to digest those cargoes out of Southeast Asia, because again, the less capacity over there, but they have more demand. And we are leverage our existing resources in those hubs for the consolidation and move to the final destination. So those are the multimodal transportation now we are offering to our customers to offer the similar lead time, but much more economic on price.
Well, best of luck with that, and I'll see you in TPM for a meal in just over a week. Kathy Liu, Vice President of Global Sales and Marketing at Dimerco Express Group, and Bronson Hsieh, former Chairman of Evergreen Shipping and Ming Shipping. Thanks for joining me today on the Freight Buyers Club.
Thank you so much for your interview. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Freight Buyers Club, produced in partnership with the Dimerco Express Group. Please subscribe and follow on your platform of choice, or sign up for delivery to your inbox at thefreightbuyersclub.com. This podcast wouldn't have been possible without the fantastic editing of Karen Ball and Tom Matthews. And finally, thank you all for listening. The next episode will be with you soon.